Jim Lieberman was the king of the strip, but Pam Hardy paid the ultimate price for his chaotic reign. This is the dramatic tale of the love, the betrayal, and the single catastrophic accident that shattered drag racing's golden couple forever. In the early 1970s, before racing became a corporate spectacle, it was a raw, gasoline-fueled frontier. A quiet college student, Pam Hardy, took a ride that changed her life and the sport forever. Pamela Hardy was never meant for the speedway. Her life was defined by the calm routines of a small college town, balancing academic classes with modest expectations. She had no passion for horsepower or the roar of engines. Her destiny lay thousands of miles from her path. But fate, roaring, arrived on an ordinary street in the summer of 1972. The object announcing this destiny was a thunderous Corvette. The man piloting it was the infamous Jim Lieberman. Known as Jungle Jim, he was already a legend. Bold, unpredictable, and consumed by spectacle and danger. When the engine's growl seized Pam's attention, she turned to find a captivating figure. A wide grin, long hair, and untamed energy. It was a spectacular collision of two worlds. Jim, the quintessential showman, spoke to Pam of a fantasy life, constant travel, cheering crowds, blinding speed. He offered her a space with his crew. The proposal was preposterous. Pam was neither a mechanic nor a racer, yet Jim's confidence transcended logic. His existence promised exhilarating freedom that came with high risk, but her settled life couldn't compete. Driven by curiosity, Pam made a momentous decision. She set aside her college routines for this fast, unpredictable life. She stepped into sensory overload, where tracks were packed, the air thick with fuel, and engines became her soundtrack. The drag strip was a rugged, male-dominated environment, yet Pam, with her composure and smile, navigated the chaos effortlessly. She started simply, there to assist. Her role quickly grew. She learned the work, from checking the car to packing the parachutes. Her presence was a stunning contrast to the mechanical frenzy, a quiet, graceful balance to Jim's raw energy. The transformation was immediate. The crowd grew fascinated. The media latched onto this juxtaposition, running photographs of the composed young woman beside Jim's roaring, funny car. She was instantly dubbed Jungle Pam. She had, almost overnight, gone from an anonymous student to one of the most talked-about figures. It was a fame she never sought, but one she wore with sophistication. The blending of Jim's intensity with Pam's presence created chemistry that was electrifying. Their combined force elevated drag racing into a dazzling spectacle. She realized that in this world, standing out was required. In a short time, Pam had reinvented herself. Yet the fire that drew her to Jim, his pursuit of speed, was an unstable element that would soon test the limits of their love and peace. A smoky burnout is an act of defiance, and every race is a one-man show. Jim Lieberman was more than a driver. He was a force of nature. To understand Pam's journey, one must grasp the intoxicating whirlwind she was about to step into. Jim Lieberman, a native of Pennsylvania, rose through the ranks not through engineering, but through charisma. He understood a crucial principle. The audience remembers the performance. His approach reflected the golden era of film, where personality was as valuable as talent. He became famous for holding his funny car in an impossibly long burnout, laying down rubber until plumes of white smoke obscured the starting line, infuriating track officials, but electrifying thousands of fans. He drove not just to win, but to amaze, pushing his nitro-burning machines beyond their limits. His antics were reminiscent of silent comedians, mastering a dangerous physical performance with a dazzling grin. This push against boundaries earned him the nickname Jungle Jim. It was fitting. He lived and raced with wild, untamed energy that refused guidelines. Jim built his career on daring to break rules, turning every race into a chaotic spectacle. He was the rebel every fan adored, the showman who made drag racing gloriously alive. This magnetic personality was the centerpiece of his operation. His funny car was recognizable, but the true draw was Jim himself, who worked the crowd with effortless charm. He would chat with fans, sign every autograph, and create a connection few rivals could match. He was a populist star. Yet this devotion to spectacle came at a profound personal cost. Jim was consumed by the sport. His relentless schedule demanded over 100 events a year, driving thousands of miles, chasing the next thrill. His life was a dizzying blur of speed, noise, and motion. There was little time for rest or settled balance. When Pamela Hardy entered this orbit, she was stepping into a world that revolved entirely around performance and keeping Jim Lieberman's name at the very top. He possessed a raw, intoxicating brilliance that promised excitement and endless instability. His relentless energy made him a legend. Yet it was also the engine of a personal whirlwind that threatened to cause destruction to anyone too close to the center. The woman who followed the rebel had yet to learn that, in the world of the showman, the line between excitement and exhaustion, passion, and private emotional conflict was often tragically thin. The untamed spirit that made Jungle Jim a legend would translate into a complex life for the young woman who chose to stand by his side. Dropping out of college was a gamble, but Pam's intuition told her this was her true stage. The world she entered was loud and dusty, yet she moved through it with composed grace. The shift for Pamela Hardy was total. She exchanged quiet routines for the relentless chaos of the early 1970s drag racing circuit. This was a place where grit was currency, defined by roaring engines and thick nitromethane fuel. Pam, with her elegance, did not fit the mold of the rough crew, and that was the secret to her appeal. At first, Pam was truly part of the crew, learning the dangerous work. She became integral to the operation. She performed essential tasks, from checking the car to packing the parachutes. Her willingness to perform these tasks earned the respect of the all-male team. Her presence on the starting line immortalized her. The moment she emerged, the strip's atmosphere changed. Moving with confidence, she served as the elegant counterpoint to Jim's aggressive showmanship. The long, dark hair, the classic jeans, and the composed posture against roaring machinery created a striking image. The audience, predominantly male, was mesmerized. Curiosity became fascination. Photographers began capturing her every move. She was rapidly dubbed Jungle Pam. She had transformed overnight into a bombshell, yet she handled the attention with the same calm as her technical duties. The crowning ritual was the routine she performed with Jim before every run. She would stand behind the funny car, guiding it backward precisely onto the starting line. This task, executed with flair, turned necessity into thrilling pre-race theater. As Jim performed his massive burnouts, Pam would weigh in the smoke, then step forward to direct the 3,200 horsepower machine perfectly into the tracks. This became the iconic visual of their partnership, the king of the strip guided by his queen. Their chemistry was undeniable. Jim was the spectacle. Pam was the cool, unexpected balance. She proved that personality could draw a crowd as effectively as speed. If you're finding this story as gripping as a finish line photo finish, please take a moment to comment below and tell us your favorite drag racing memory from the 70s. Pamela Hardy brought the human element of spectacle and glamour. She was living proof that in this golden age of motorsports, a smile and a steady hand could steal the show. This instant fame, however, brought pressure that would erode the excitement they had built. Their partnership was cinematic, the rebel paired with the beauty. On the starting line, Jim and Pam were the golden couple who put personality back into the machinery. The connection transcended the mechanical world. It was a partnership of perfect contrasts. Jim provided the spectacle, the speed, but Pam supplied the grounding elegance and the human story the audience craved. Their visual presence was irresistible. Jim looked like a rock star. Beside him, Jungle Pam, poised and graceful, brought femininity. She was effortlessly beautiful, moving through the dusty pits with the air of a Hollywood ingenue. Together, they were Tinseltown royalty, transplanted onto the asphalt. This chemistry was most potent during their ritual. As Jim began his burnout, Pam would remain still, a silhouette of composure in the automotive storm. Once the smoke cleared, she would step forward, directing the powerful machine backward with precision. Her hands would guide the 5,000 horsepower into perfect alignment. The crowd reaction was electric. This was recognition of a performance, a dazzling two-person act. Pam's role was essential. She was the counterweight to Jim's frenzy, the calm center of his personal whirlwind. Her confidence signaled to spectators that the chaotic operation was under perfect control. Their photographs graced every significant racing publication, solidifying their status. This attention meant they were perpetually inseparable, their bond growing deeper. For Pam, the excitement of being part of this whirlwind was intoxicating. Their connection made the endless travel and brutal schedule feel worthwhile. In a few short seasons, Pam had transitioned to one of the most talked about figures. Her image beside Jim's car became synonymous with drag racing's golden age. This profound fame created an enduring legend. However, the intensity that made their partnership dazzling would soon begin to cause emotional conflict behind the scenes. The relentless pressure of their public roles was preparing a stage for a private drama. Behind the blinding flash of the cameras, the golden life of Jungle Jim and Jungle Pam was beginning to show cracks. The brutal road schedule and Jim's consuming obsession with spectacle led to an intense emotional volatility behind the scenes. On the surface, Jungle Jim and Jungle Pam were the definition of drag racing royalty. But their reality, hidden behind motel doors, was far less dazzling. Jim Lieberman lived as if every day were a final qualifying run, and Pam, who sought freedom, discovered that life at full throttle was profoundly exhausting. Jim was entirely consumed by the sport. His schedule demanded over 100 appearances annually, forcing them to drive tens of thousands of miles, relentlessly chasing the next event. The noise of the engines and the scent of fuel became their permanent reality. This existence left little time for rest or a peaceful personal relationship. The charisma that made Jim the king of the strip was a double-edged sword. He could fill a stadium with his charm. Yet, the energy he drew upon left him restless and distant when the lights dimmed. Everything revolved around his performance. Pam often found herself caught between admiration for his talent and frustration with his obsession. She loved him, but being with Jim meant living inside a continuous whirlwind. He could be affectionate one moment, then distant, consumed by speed the next. The lack of privacy magnified every minor emotional conflict. As their fame swelled, the pressure became immense. Their faces were everywhere. This scrutiny amplified every personal challenge. The more they were idolized, the more complicated their private life became. And Pam felt the weight of maintaining their public facade, even when things were amiss. The same fire that made their partnership exciting made their emotional life volatile. Jim's passion for speed often translated into a restless dissatisfaction, a constant search for adrenaline. Pam was internally battling the realization that the man she loved seemed unable to slow down. The constant demands created deep cracks, invisible to the crowds. The young woman who had sought freedom was trapped in the center of the spectacle. Though Pam remained loyally by his side, she was entirely unaware that the high-speed life they had built was racing toward a catastrophic stop. The golden facade was meticulously maintained, but the fragile reality of their relationship was assaulted by endless rumors and external scrutiny. As Jim's star power reached its zenith, the whispers that circled the racing pits grew louder. Stories began to circulate throughout the pits and bars. There were whispers concerning Jim's heavy consumption of alcohol, suggesting he was pushing himself beyond limits to maintain the persona of the rebel everyone expected. This pursuit of the image took a toll on his stability. More emotionally damaging for Pam were the rumors suggesting Jim was unfaithful. These stories floated through their world like a bitter exhaust cloud. Pam, who sacrificed everything, found herself forced to endure the scrutiny while maintaining composure. She would smile, perform her ritual, and hold her head high, even when her trust was eroding. Pamela Hardy was defined by her loyalty. She believed deeply in Jim, That loyalty became the anchor, but it came with a quiet, internal heartbreak. She was caught in the impossible position of defending her partner while battling the anxieties his nature created. The race day atmosphere intensified the pressure. Fans idolized them, but the attention meant every moment of silence was open to speculation. Reporters painted Pam as a mere lucky charm, stripping away recognition of her professionalism. She saw both sides of Jim, the charismatic showman and the restless man who simply couldn't slow down. What the fans missed were the exhausted silence after a long night, the muted arguments, and the profound loneliness of life on the road. Despite the cracks, Pam stood by him, always the essential partner. She backed up the funny car and performed her job. But the effort of maintaining that illusion was wearing her down, unaware that their shared life was racing toward a single, catastrophic moment. For a man who lived at full throttle, perhaps it was inevitable that his end would come the same way. The final tragic confrontation with speed occurred not on a prepared strip, but on a mundane stretch of public highway. The chaos of the speedway often obscured the daily hazards of Jim Lieberman's existence. He spent his life daring fate. The date was September 9th, 1977. Jim was behind the wheel of his Corvette, driving through West Goshen Township, Pennsylvania. There were no cameras, no cheering crowds, only the open road and the ingrained need for speed that defined his character. Witnesses reported he was traveling rapidly when he attempted to pass another vehicle. In a split second, the Corvette crossed into the opposing lane and collided head-on with a commuter bus. The impact was brutal. Jim Lieberman was fatally injured instantly, just 3 days before his 32nd birthday. For the legions of fans who adored his dangerous living, the circumstances of his passing, sudden and off the track, felt like a horrifying fulfillment of his persona, and there was no final curtain call, only a sudden, profound silence. The news of the tragedy spread with velocity. Pam was shattered. The charismatic man, who had been the absolute center of her universe, was gone. They had shared the highs of fame and an unbreakable bond, but in one terrifying instant, all of it ceased. Friends reported that Pam was overcome with shock and could barely speak. The loss of her partner was a wave of grief no words could touch. The racing community was stunned. Jungle Jim was an iconic showman. His sudden passing left an undeniable void. Tributes poured in. Racers and fans spoke of his infectious laugh. Magazines that ran stories about his stunts now carried sober headlines of grief. At his memorial, fans gathered, not to mourn a quiet man, but to honor the ultimate rebel. The loss of a legend leaves a void that can't be filled. If you're moved by this story, please subscribe to our channel and join us as we continue to uncover the untold lives of sports history's icons. Jim's fatal injury marked the definitive end of an era. The 1970s drag racing scene began to change immediately. Safety rules tightened, showmanship faded, and the sport evolved. Jungle Jim became a legend, a defiant image of the rebel frozen in time. But for Pam, the accident destroyed the entire world she had built around him. The racing community was stunned into silence. Tributes poured in for the showman, but Pam's grief was a quiet, private devastation. The man who was her entire world was gone, and the echo of his absence was deafening. The immediate aftermath of the tragic loss of life was defined by a profound silence. For a man measured in decibels, the stop was jarring. Fans who cheered his antics struggled to process the finality. Tributes arrived, mourning the showman who made the sport thrillingly alive. For Pamela Hardy, the devastation was absolute. Her life, pulled into a whirlwind, was directionless. The anchor of her reality was yanked away, leaving her adrift on sorrow. Friends reported she was overcome by immense sadness and could barely articulate her pain. The racing community wrestled with profound loss. Jim Lieberman had been an icon who defined the spirit of the sport. His passing created a void no speed could fill. The larger consequence of the accident stretched beyond grief. Jim's sudden removal from the scene marked the definitive end of an era. Safety rules tightened, and the showmanship Jim had perfected began to fade. Jungle Jim was thus perfectly preserved as a legend. However, for Pam, the consequence was personal. The accident destroyed the world she had constructed. Every engine roar, every track, served to reopen the wound. She had built her identity around Jim. With the chaos gone, only silence remained. Pam was forced to confront the impossible question of who she was without the whirlwind. The time for spectacle was over. One day, she was standing beside the funny car. The next, she was simply gone. Pam didn't leave with a grand gesture. She focused on the physical withdrawal, needing distance from the chaos that had become too painful to bear. In the wake of Jim Lieberman's tragic removal from life, Pamela Hardy found her reality had collapsed. The life that had been loud felt hollowed out, consumed by unshakable silence. The noise, the crowds, the scent of burning rubber. Everything that defined her 5 years served only as agonizing reminders of what was lost. Pam made her exit from drag racing with quiet finality. She gave no interviews or public farewell. One day, she was the composed presence. The next, she had vanished. The weight of her emotional burden was too immense to carry back onto the track. Pam needed distance from the memories of Jim and the entire environment that housed their spectacular life. She attempted to construct a life outside of adrenaline. She took small, anonymous jobs and tried to find a steady rhythm. But the transition was difficult. She had lived at high speed, and the cessation of that rush left a void. The glamour that was intoxicating now felt like an impossible expectation. To the world, she would forever remain Jungle Pam. Everywhere she went, she risked recognition. Some fans wanted autographs. Others simply wanted to engage her in painful discussions about Jim. No matter how much time passed, she could not outrun his shadow. Her identity was fused to the legend of a man no longer there. The fame she never chased became a profound weight. The quiet woman retreated further into herself. She was grappling with who Pamela Hardy was without the kinetic force of Jim Lieberman. She had relied on adrenaline and motion. Now she was left with stillness, forced to confront the grief she had sidestepped during the chaos. The decision to walk away was a powerful statement of respect. Without Jim, the show no longer made sense. She was done with the spotlight, determined to find a sanctuary. But the public's fascination with the siren of the Speedway was far from over. Her disappearance deepened the mystery, setting the stage for decades of curiosity. Even in the quiet, she could not escape the legend. To the world, she was forever Jungle Pam, a youthful, smiling image frozen in time next to Jim's car. This psychological burden was the continuous, gentle punishment following her physical withdrawal. Pamela Hardy retreated, seeking anonymity. But she discovered that a life lived spectacularly leaves an indelible mark. The fame that was once shared excitement now functioned as a continuous punishment. She found herself grappling with who was the private woman, and how could she coexist with the icon the world remembered. To fans, Jungle Pam remained 20-something, the composed beauty in the smoke. Her image was immortalized on posters. This static image became a crushing weight for the real woman, who was grappling with grief. The pursuit of a normal life became an impossibility. Every attempt at anonymity was complicated by the risk of recognition. People everywhere would spot her, forcing her to constantly revisit the tragedy. She found herself in a unique predicament. Her current self was perpetually overshadowed by her past persona. The life she had built with Jim felt authentic. The demands to be Jungle Pam felt artificial. Reporters occasionally tracked her down. Pam kept these interactions brief. She spoke kindly of Jim, but profound sadness lingered beneath her words. An acceptance that the most exciting chapter was also the one that caused her the greatest sorrow. The irony was not lost. Pam never chased the spotlight. She loved the showman who lived in it, yet she could not outrun the fame bestowed upon her. It was a reminder that the high-speed life had ultimately led to a captivity of memory. The iconic photograph became both her achievement and her impediment to peace. The public's curiosity was relentless. This protracted public obsession would complicate even her heartfelt attempts to open her life to new love. When the adrenaline of the road life faded, Pam was left to confront the silence. This required dealing with the emotional and financial difficulties that proved the harsh reality of life after the spectacle. The spectacle of fame had masked an unsustainable internal system. For 5 years, Pamela Hardy's life was entirely fueled by external forces. When the tragic accident occurred, that fuel supply was severed. The contrast between the dizzying pace and the quiet desolation was stark. While on the road, Pam never had to confront personal difficulties. Now, left with stillness, she was forced to reconcile the emotional conflicts she had avoided. This period was challenging. Rumors circulated about her well-being. Some whispered she was struggling financially, a harsh dose of reality after the chaotic wealth of fame. Others spoke of her profound emotional distress, claiming the trauma of losing someone central left her deeply sad. She wrestled with who she was without the partnership. The weight of her past followed her. She faced difficulty maintaining steady relationships due to comparisons to Jim. Every connection carried the weight of the celebrity she was trying to shed. Throughout this dark period, Pam maintained dignity. She never confirmed the gossip, choosing to retreat, protecting her privacy. She refused to feed the tabloid curiosity. This solitude was necessary. In deep reflection, she began to process her journey. The thrill, the heartbreak. She was building something new from the wreckage of a life built on speed. Though successful in protecting her privacy, the public's fascination persisted. She had survived the emotional fire of fame and loss, but her attempts to find peace would be complicated by the very legend she was trying to outlive. The next challenge was accepting a new partner into a life shadowed by the showman. As the years passed, nostalgia brought Pam back into the spotlight, but only on her own terms. She handled the attention with grace, acknowledging the past with pride and quiet pain. Following Jim Lieberman's removal from life, Pamela Hardy retreated, finding sanctuary. As the calendar turned past the 1980s, nostalgia brought the iconic figures of the 1970s back. Jungle Jim was enshrined as a rebel, and curiosity about Jungle Pam was reignited. She could not remain hidden. Demand for interviews grew persistent. Pam allowed herself to be seen again, always with dignity. She strictly controlled the narrative. Her priority was to honor the history they shared, never to indulge in sensationalism. When she spoke about those years, the voice was steady, carrying sadness mixed with pride. She never spoke ill of Jim. She offered reflections on the velocity of their time, acknowledging the highs and the difficulties. She described her partnership with Jim as a force of nature, a bolt of lightning. This captured the intensity and brilliance of their connection. When asked why she never pursued a similar role, she insisted the bond was a singular event, a one-off deal that could not be replicated. The warmth with which fans greeted her upon her returns was genuine. They saw a physical link to a vanished age. People lined up to meet her, eager to share their fond memories. This exposure was crucial to her healing. It allowed her to see her contribution, her poise and loyalty, was valued, distinct from the ultimate tragedy. It was an acknowledgement that Jungle Pam was a vital part of the story. Time allowed Pam to carry the memories, not as a burden, but as a legacy. She survived the emotional fire and was standing in the light, ready to reflect. Her grace proved her strength. This acceptance would give her the strength to embark on a difficult attempt to build a life defined by quiet connection. To the racing world, Jim was irreplaceable. For Pam, the connection was a one-off deal. Attempting a comeback with another driver felt like a betrayal. It would not have worked because the magic had left the starting line with Jim. As Pamela Hardy stepped back into the periphery of motorsports, the question hung over every appearance. Would she return full-time? The ghost of Jungle Jim's legacy was too pervasive to allow a second act. Jim Lieberman and Pam were a theatrical unit. Their ritual was a perfect duet. To insert a new driver would have been a creative and emotional breach. She understood that the iconic nature of the pairing stemmed from the genuine chemistry that only existed between them. She articulated this. Her bond with Jim was a symbiotic type of relationship. He executed the thrilling performance, and she provided the crucial precision. It was a union where both parts were essential. The sport itself had changed. Jim's era was defined by recklessness. Following the tragic accident, drag racing underwent a fundamental shift. Rules became stricter, and showmanship began to fade. The wild energy Pam had loved was gone. The new, regulated environment couldn't accommodate the spectacle they pioneered. She wisely recognized that the magic of their story was irretrievably tied to that specific time and man. She knew that attempting a comeback would involve constant comparisons. Pam chose to preserve the integrity of their story, honoring their original connection. Her refusal to pursue a second act was a profound statement of respect. She chose a quiet life over a diminished spectacle, finding strength in the silence. Love does not always end with loss, but the weight of a legend is heavy for any new beginning. Pam sought peace and found comfort in Fred Frey, a man who understood the chaos of the drag racing world. In the years that followed Jim Lieberman's tragic removal from life, Pamela Hardy faced the struggle of finding a new anchor. Her heart, which had endured the whirlwind of fame and loss, was tentative. She required a connection that understood the unique nature of her past. Among the figures Pam had met on the circuit was Fred Frey, a funny car owner. Following the accident, Fred could grasp Pam's emotional complexity. Their connection developed slowly, born of shared memories and mutual respect. Pam and Fred eventually married. It appeared Pam had found stability. It was an attempt to build a conventional life. Yet, conventionality was never easy for Jungle Pam, and the marriage was fatally compromised by the perpetual presence of Jim's legacy. The relationship carried the burden of everything that came before. Though Fred was patient, he was forced to live in the shadow of Jim Lieberman's legend. Every public appearance circled back to the king of the strip. The strain was constant. Fred was constantly reminded that his wife's identity was tied to the memory of another man. What began as comfort transformed into a painful reminder of what Pam had lost. The marriage was full of good intentions, but weighed down by emotions. The bond she shared with Jim, a force she described as a bolt of lightning, was too powerful to be followed by a steady light within the same tumultuous world. The weight of her past proved too great. The marriage concluded quietly. Pam retreated, choosing privacy. This second retreat made it clear that to truly heal, she needed to detach herself from the entire context of the life they shared. Her next attempt at love required finding peace outside the world that made her a star. She sought a life defined not by roaring engines, but by quiet understanding. In Bill Hodgson, who stood completely outside the racing spotlight, Pam finally found the peace and anonymity she had longed for. The failure of Pam's first marriage served as a necessary lesson. To truly heal, she needed to detach herself from the context of the racing world. The shadow of Jungle Jim was too pervasive. Her next connection would be built on stillness. Years after her retreat, Pam met Bill Hodgson. Their relationship developed in striking contrast to the whirlwind that defined her youth. There was only quiet connection forged, far away from the media. Crucially, Bill Hodgson was not part of the racing spotlight. He understood implicitly that Pam was seeking sanctuary. He saw her simply as Pam Hardy, a woman who desired ordinary, peaceful days. This ability to separate the icon from the woman allowed Pam to finally exhale, providing a crucial, high-contrast, emotional payoff. With Bill, the pressure to perform ceased. He provided a steady, calm anchor away from fame. The questions about Jim were external noises Bill could help her manage. They built their life on normalcy. This quiet, removed existence allowed Pam to heal. Though the scars of loss never vanished, the relationship with Bill provided contentment. She was finally allowed to exist outside of the spectacle, finding satisfaction in a calm rhythm. In rare moments, Pam would reflect on love, the consuming intensity she shared with Jim, and the quiet, deep understanding she shared with Bill. The public never stopped wondering, but the privacy Bill helped her maintain became her treasure. Their steady relationship proved that a happy ending is often the quietest one. She had endured the fire of fame and survived the heartbreak. She was ready to embrace her legacy on her own graceful terms. After a lifetime in the public eye, Pam's final treasure was privacy. She lives a quiet and grounded life, out of the spotlight, proving that peace is often found far away from the cameras. The solitude Pamela Hardy embraced became the signature of her later life. The woman who stood in the flash of cameras came to value silence. This choice was from a deep understanding that personal peace was the one thing fame could never provide. Today, Pam Hardy, in her 70s, is settled into a quiet rhythm with her husband, Bill Hodgson. Their life is simple and removed from the chaos that defined her youth. This distance is a boundary designed to protect her contentment. She has secured a space where the legend of Jungle Pam remains in history, allowing the true woman to live in the present. Her public footprint is minimal, a conscious decision to manage her narrative. In an age dominated by social media, Pam maintains no active online persona. Her presence is primarily archival. She consciously avoids feeding gossip, a refusal to commodify her own legend. This commitment to privacy has been a testament to her strength. While journalists continue to reach out, seeking her perspective, she only grants interviews on rare occasions, insisting the focus remains on facts. She refuses to indulge in speculation, ensuring the saga of Jim Lieberman remains anchored in dignified history. For the racing community, she remains a figure of quiet reverence. When she steps out of the shadows, she is greeted with warmth and nostalgia. Fans line up with respect, acknowledging her contribution. Pam handles these interactions with the same composure she displayed on the starting line. She is thankful that people remember her. But the true heart of her existence resides in her quiet home. The journey of Pamela Hardy is a study in contrasts. Her legacy is one of survival, grace, and the enduring truth that peace is often found in the deliberate final act of silence. Her final act of public acknowledgement, a poignant return to the asphalt, is the perfect closing scene to her personal narrative. She never drove the funny car, but Jungle Pam brought something essential: personality, glamour, and silent strength. She remains one of the most recognizable faces of drag racing's glorious, reckless youth. The true testament to Pamela Hardy's power is that her image remains a cultural touchstone of the 1970s. She achieved a legendary status many champions envy. She was the human element, the spark of glamour that transformed competition into a romantic spectacle. Her genius lay in her presence, the composure that stood in sharp contrast to the furious noise. She became a symbol of the showmanship that defined the golden age. Jungle Pam on the starting line remains an indelible image. When fans talk about that untamed period, her name is instantly invoked. She represented the freedom and fun that permeated the circuit. She is the physical embodiment of their fondest memories. Her appeal is organic. It was born from the chemistry she shared with Jim. She simply existed in that space, doing her job with competence. She was the one who could bring a moment of stillness to the storm. Pamela Hardy proved she did not have to be the star driver to make an indelible impact. Her role was crucial, transforming the Jungle Gym operation into a cinematic experience. Even today, her iconic photograph graces documentaries. She carries this legacy with elegance, thankful that people remember her. Pamela Hardy is a powerful cultural artifact. Her strength lies in the fact that she survived the chaos and loss, emerging with her dignity intact. Her graceful journey from noise to peace is a profound story. Pam's role shifted from performer to archivist. She accepted the responsibility of her legacy, carefully donating items to ensure the history was honored, never exploited, a final act of respect for the man she loved. As the years advanced, she became the meticulous archivist of her own past. Her final public duty was to ensure the memory of Jim Lieberman and their glorious era was preserved with dignity. Pam was frequently approached by curators eager to acquire artifacts connected to Jungle Gym. She handled this responsibility with composure. When she felt a request honored the history, she would acquiesce. She has donated various items. These objects served as tangible links to the reckless period she and Jim defined. Pam's selection process was a final, poignant statement of loyalty. She meticulously chose institutions that she trusted to tell the story accurately. This curated donation was a powerful final act of respect for Jim, ensuring his untamed legacy would endure. Within the motorsports community, she is treated with reverence. People circulate stories about her professionalism. This deep respect serves as the true validation of her importance. She understands now more than ever that her image belongs to history. When she speaks, it is always direct, focusing on facts. This resolute dedication to truth ensures her narrative remains anchored in the sporting record. We hope you'll share this touching story with a fellow classic sports fan. The best way to honor a legacy is to keep the memory alive. By curating the fragments of her life, Pamela Hardy secured an enduring place in history, not merely as a bombshell, but as a dignified survivor. She ensured that the flash of lightning that was her life with Jim would continue to illuminate the golden age of drag racing. In a beautiful, full-circle moment, Pam returned to the starting line at the National Hot Rod Association Finals in 2016. This powerful final act of acknowledgement was a brief, poignant moment as she performed the iconic ritual for a new champion. After decades spent cultivating peace, Pamela Hardy made a symbolic return. At the finals, the woman known as Jungle Pam stepped back onto the starting line. It stirred immense nostalgia. This return was a graceful acknowledgement of her legacy. She was invited to perform her most iconic ritual, guiding a funny car back into the tracks. The champion driver she assisted was Jack Beckman. For a few electric moments, Pam was once again the composed anchor on the asphalt. The moment was a fusion of history and the present. As she stood in the smoke and directed the machine, fans erupted. Pam, now in her 60s, moved with the same quiet confidence, proving that professional grace never truly fades. The circuit was now controlled. The experience offered Pam a stark measure of how profoundly the sport had changed. Speaking about the experience, Pam confessed that the moment felt a little bit surreal. She acknowledged that backing up a car was much more intense. The spectacle was no longer about the anarchy of Jungle Jim, but about millimeter precision. She gave credit to Beckman, noting that he backs up slowly for me, a detail that underscored the change from the reckless speed of her youth. Her participation in this single event was a final gift to the fans and an act of reconciliation with her history. It proved that the legendary presence she commanded was entirely her own, enduring decades after her partner's tragic removal from life. She had returned to remind the world of the power of her grace and the profound romance of the past. From the roar of the engines to the silence of her current life, Pam Hardy's story is a profound meditation on fame, love, and loss. She lived a flash in the pan, a bolt of lightning, and carried its warmth and tragedy for a lifetime. The life of Pamela Hardy, the unforgettable Jungle Pam, is a study in contrasts. Her story spans the full spectrum of experience, moving from quiet predictability to high-octane frenzy, and finally, settling into reflective peace. Her journey is defined by self-invention, sacrifice, and the pursuit of dignity. Her transformation was fueled by the charisma of Jim Lieberman, who offered her a life of exhilarating freedom. For a brief period, they were the undisputed golden couple. Pam's role was essential as Jim's power. The lightning bolt of that life was unsustainable. The relentless pace and the fragility of the showman led inevitably to the tragic accident that severed the connection and ended his life so abruptly. Pam was left to navigate a world that had become silent, facing a grief compounded by the impossibility of separating her identity from the legend she shared. Her subsequent journey proved a testament to her resilience. She endured the period of profound emotional distress, wrestled with the burden of an image frozen in time, and finally found the courage to attempt a new life. Her eventual marriage to Bill Hodgson, a gentle anchor, was the ultimate declaration of her commitment to peace. It represented her acceptance that enduring happiness could be found in stillness. In her later years, Pam has carried her legacy with grace. She has engaged with the nostalgia with dignity, ensuring that the history is preserved truthfully. Her occasional symbolic returns were a reminder that the memory of their love remains vibrant. The final truth of her life is that the intensity she shared with Jim, the force she called a bolt of lightning, remains an indelible mark. She carried the pain and the triumph of that era, transforming the chaos of the past into the quiet dignity of the present. Pamela Hardy survived the whirlwind, embraced the subsequent silence, and found peace on her own terms. Her life is a moving reminder that the most compelling stories are not always the ones with the loudest roar, but the ones with the most profound, graceful echo. She is an icon of style, strength, and survival, and the legend of Jungle Pam will continue to illuminate the golden age of motorsports forever. Their story was a dazzling, high-speed flash of lightning, forever illuminating the wild heart of the 1970s. If you were moved by the grace and resilience of Pamela Hardy, please like this video and subscribe to join us as we continue to uncover the most unforgettable human stories behind Hollywood's golden age.